up, boss?
Oh, actually, he's the boss. I just pay for everything and design everything and make everyone look cooler.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that I have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. We are concluding Stark Wars or Armor Wars. It just depends on how you want to call it. Iron Man 231 from 1988. This is the introduction of the Mach 9 or the Type 9 armor. And here we got who is the new Iron Man. Great cover here. And so we also have a new regular penciler, which is Jackson Geis or Butch Geis. It just depends on, or is it Goose? I don't know, because you put that into a J and it looks like juice, so it could be Goose. I've always said Geis. I really don't know how it's pronounced. By the way, rest in peace, Jackson or Butch, however you want to call him. Great cover here. So he will become the new regular penciler of this series. And this, I don't, let me see here if he does the insides or if it's still Mark Bright. I know Butch Geist takes over after. So, Stark Wars Chapter 7, Reborn Again. And so here we have different things. We got Price is Right. Oh my God. um, oh my God. I almost said Love Boat, but that's not it. Gilligan's Island. The news. And so now they're talking about Iron Man. You got the Brady Bunch. Um, More news. Gem and the Holograms. Speed Racer. More news. So, and it's Tony Stark watching all these things on satellite TV, which is before the internet. The next you could either get cable or you could get satellite. So it does look like it's Mark Bright. And so as we know, Tony Stark survived, um, almost getting killed when in the previous issue. By the way, I have a playlist. Feel free to check it out. I have every single issue of the um, Silver Centurion armor, and I have most, not all, but most of the issues leading up to the Silver Centurion armor. So feel free to check those out so you can see everything. I got all the issues on Stark Wars in there as well. So Tony was almost getting killed, and so now he is just banged up trying to recover here. He is just severely injured here. It does look like Doc Bright finishes, or Mark Bright finishes the his run here, and we will then get an issue of well, actually, we're gonna cover um, let's see, the Barry Windsor Smith issue. Then we're actually gonna do an annual that was that takes place before Armor Wars had started, but it was released after, and so for some reason the collection that I'm using has it at the very end instead of where it should be in reading order. But when I actually put it on the playlist, I will put it where it should go so that if anybody is reading or watching these videos for the first time and the videos are in reading order, hopefully you by the time the annual is in there, you will have it'll be in the right place if you watch it through the playlist. And so we're going to get a recap here of Iron Man fighting Firepower. and how Jim Rhodes put a bunch of the blood he had collected and then used the remote controlled armor to send it out there to make it look like Iron Man is dead. And Tony even says, I've decided to leave him that way. And you can see Jim Rhodes is like, what the man? And so now they're testing firepower here. And you can see they blew him up with a bazooka here. Direct hit, but nothing happened to him. And so Cord asks him how it went, and he says the guy's name is Jack, and he says, "No kinks, Mr. Cord. Structural integrity intact. Seems our little tussle with Iron Man didn't do this firepower armor a bit of damage." And so you can see how big the armor is. And so Cord says, good, I'm glad to hear it. It seems we have some company. Senator Boynton, General Meade, I've been expecting you. And the general says, I believe we've given you ample time to run follow-up tests on firepower armor, Cord. And the senator says, if you'll have Mr. Taggart vacate the apparatus, we'd like to take custody now. And Cord says, sorry, boys, I'm not quite through with firepower yet. Nothing like shady businessman's doing shady businessman thing. And the senator says, what? Need I remind you the government financed your development of firepower? Why will drag your fanny into court so fast? And Cord says, fine by me, Senator. Of course, under oath, I'd have to be honest. Tell people how firepower wasn't really conceived as a weapon against superheroes, but as the ultimate in riot control to be used against citizens in cases of extreme civil disorder. The Post would love it. And you can see he smiles. And the senator's like, perhaps that was a bit hasty. And the senators, the general's like, bull cookies. That armor's getting into that flatbed truck and coming with us. And Cord snaps his finger. He's like, Jack, and he destroys the truck. And Cord says, funny, I don't see any flatbed trucks. Good day, gentlemen. Oh my goodness. Isn't it something when someone takes advantage of the government for a change? It's normally the government taking advantage of people. So Jim and Tony arrive at Stark Enterprises. I love this bird's eye view of it. And they're like, I see you're feeling better. Glad to have you back. And Tony says, thank you, Mrs. Arbogast. And to celebrate, I'd like to send a memo to all employees. And he says, quote, the dark days are over. We're on the move again. And so Marcy here, as head of public relations, Mr. Stark, might I suggest a new corporate spokesperson, someone a bit less controversial than Iron Man. And she says, why don't I contact Bill Cosby's agent? So things that don't age well, of course, who knew back then? So, all right. And so, we're now at this, Marston Manufacturing, group, and you see Cord, they're having a board meeting here. And they go, the contract bid from Stark Enterprises is the lowest by a considerable margin. So despite the recent troubles they've had with Iron Man, I recommend. And then Cord just busts in, and the secretary says, I'm sorry, sir, but this man insists on addressing your meeting. He says, actually, we insist, and he's got firepower with him. And he says, now, about that Stark bid, I think it would be healthier for all concerned if you were to turn it down. By the way, that is highly illegal, but that's okay. This is comic books. But it's highly illegal what he's doing. And so it says here, days later at Accutech, and suddenly they're being attacked by firepower. So it looks like they decided they're going to be making some trouble for Tony here. And so you can see them that they've been losing accounts here. And Tony says, without Iron Man's stigma to weigh us down. Revenues should be moving upward, but instead they're falling, all because of harassment and interference by an armored warrior who sounds disturbingly like firepower. So Tony realizes. I filed a formal protest in Washington. They said they'd form a committee to look into it. What a crock. See, even in the 80s, late 80s, people knew. Someone is stonewalling. And Tony says, so much pressure is being applied that I can't even get the police to do anything. Eventually, the sheer audacity of all this will spark interest. If nothing else, the press will insist on knowing what is going on. But by then, Stark Enterprises may have reached the end of its, and Rhodey says, heads up, Chief, and Firepower attacks the train. And man, that is a killer armor. And so the guys are gonna shoot, and he's like, no. He's like, I've seen what this monster can do, and he tell people to keep their distance and to help this guy. And so Firepower says, I suggest you listen to the message program into my public address system, and he hits a click here. And it's Edwin Cord here. And he says, you ruined my life, and destroying Iron Man was merely the prelude to my ruining yours. Your meddling took the Cord conglomerate away from me. That was an Iron Man 145 a long time ago. And now I'm going to make take Stark Enterprises for you. Quit now or see the havoc you've just seen. Sorry. The havoc you've just seen will only be the beginning. Sorry. Took me a minute there. And so, Firepower says, pay attention, chump. You don't have Iron Man to protect you anymore, so be smart. Do what you're told. And he leaves. Man, that's still impressive. So Rhodey says, what's our next move? And he says, I don't know about you, Jim. As for me, I'm going home. And he's like, what? Chief, as Tony walks away. But Tony doesn't just walk away. We've all seen the Avengers movies and the Iron Man movies. He's a futurist, and he designs. And look at this. A digital drawing table in the late 80s. That's pretty cool. And so he is going to build himself another armor, because that is what he does. And this is the start of the Mach 9. I think it's called Mach 9, or it's 9. So by the time this video goes out, I'll make sure that I have the correct name. But I think it's the Mach 9. And so here it is. I was in high school when this issue came out. So, although I have a very well affinity for the Silver Centurion armor, I also have a great affinity this one second. I did not grow up with Iron Man with the classic one. To me, the Silver Centurion armor is my sweet spot, and then this armor is my second sweet spot here. And so he's built it, and so Tony goes and says, or thinks here, I know they're worried about me, Rhodey, Ray, Mrs. Arbogast, and the rest, and I wish I could let them in on this. I'm proud of what I've done. This is the most sophisticated, most astonishing invention I've ever constructed, but that's the precise reason it has to be destroyed. It's too good. With all the pain and sorrow my other armor caused, I shudder to think what could happen if this fell into evil hands, even with the security chip. I may be a dreamer, but I'm also a realist. I know I won't just roll over and let someone take Stark Enterprises, but as soon as firepower is dealt with, I'm going to vaporize my new armor into atoms. But he doesn't. But, you know, to the reader, you're like, whoa, way back then. So, it says here, a few days later, and we're north of San Francisco, so Stark is making an announcement here. And this guy here says some stuff, and firepower comes through. What it'll be, chump, is the worst mistake you've ever made. So he destroys the building. You should know by now, councilman, that people who work for Stark risk their health, and groups that support him risk utter destruction. And suddenly he's attacked, and he says, "You mean this?" And he's like, "No, it can't be." And of course, we're gonna get our first view of it here, and he's like, "Wise up, chump. You mess with Mr. Stark's interests anywhere in the world, and you'll have to answer too." And we're gonna get a wonderful image here, the new Iron Man. So Mark Bright did issue 200, which was the first appearance of the Silver Centurion armor, and he did a full splash page of it, and I think this one is just as good here. So awesome, awesome. And you can see some of the differences, particularly the belt. There's no belt, and this has the shoulders. So this isn't round the way the other armor is. And then, of course, the gloves are different and the boots are different. So those are some of the differences between the original armor and this one. But it's the same face and almost the same design, but definitely the same color scheme. So a lot of people were very happy with this because they wanted to see the red and yellow armor back. So Firepower says, Stark hired another fool. He's dumber than I thought. I'll just engage my targeting system, and it's not locking. And Iron Man says, I studied the fight you had with my predecessor, and I learned a lot, including how to jam your missile lock. And he says, I don't need it. And so he's you see him here. He's firing all his missiles. So Iron Man uses counter missiles and has this shield here. And he says it absorbs the charge perfectly. So he sees that Firepower is trying to get away, and he throws these pulse bolts, and the pulse bolts aren't very strong when you're up close, but if you're far away, they gain strength. So he says from that distance, it should be devastating. So he hits him very well here, and he starts falling. Stark gets there, and he's like, how'd you cover 100 yards in seconds? How? And he says, did I forget to mention the improvements Stark made in my boot propulsion system? How careless. And so he punches him really hard. You can see that it goes there. And so he throws everything. He says he can't dodge it all. And he's like, I stopped him before, and I can stop him again with Terminax, which is the nuke. And the fact that he would use the nuclear weapon in U.S. soil just to destroy Iron Man is hilarious, because talk about overkill. And so he is gonna lock, but this got damaged, and so now it won't get out. And he's like, Iron Man, the nuke's on a timer and I can't get it. Get me out of here. And he's like, sorry, Firepower, if your armor's sealed, there's nothing I can do to open it. But you have to do something. We've only got 30 seconds. And he's like, 30? And like, what a thing. And Iron Man thinks here, my computer could probably break the cancellation code, but that'll take time. But I have to buy us some with an electromagnetic pulse, something I learned from Force. And that's in issue 224, which I did cover. And so the EMP can dampen electrical circuits for 6 minutes. Unfortunately, it also drains my power, all my mobility and life support for the same time. That makes its uses limited. But in this case, it just And he's like, "What happened? My dreadnoughts are dead. The timer stopped." And he says, "Keep calm. I'm going to run a sensor scan." And so he continues and continues and continues, and now it's got 9 seconds. So he does it, and so Firepower gets out. He's like, "Take it easy, folks. Everything's okay. If you think you're smart, man, sorry, you think you're smart, but there'll be others. Someone will kill you, just like I killed the other Iron Man." And you can see here he rips out the armor here. He's like, "You mean all this time the bomb was counting down? All you had, and all this time I was sweating my butt off. He could have just torn off my helmet, but you said you couldn't get me out." And he says, "I lied." And so now back at his home, which I think is really cool. The movie did, I think, a very cool version of it. Um, Probably a more realistic version, but I love this thing here. And he goes, "There'll be hundreds of questions about the new Iron Man, and I'll have to answer them tomorrow. Right now, I need to rest and reflect. I swore to destroy my new armor, but what Firepower said was true. There will be others." And so we are still in the era of suitcases. And so he is going to keep it around for a while and go to sleep. He says, "The first good night's sleep I've had in ages." And we finally get to the credits here. So David Michelinie, plot script. Mark Bright does the breakdowns. Bob Layton, plot and finishes. Mark Grenwald is still our editor, by the way. Rest in peace, Mark Grenwald. Rest in peace, Mark Bright. And Tom DeFalco is still with us as of this recording. And so this is shortly after Jim Shooter was ousted, unfortunately. So this is the official, well, not official. There is another issue, and you know what? The issue is actually not going to take that long. So you know what? Let's cover it as well. So this is 232, and I'm going to ruin it for you already. This is a nightmare that he has. So we're not really going to concentrate. This is Barry Windsor Smith on the cover, and he also does the pencils on the inside. Bob Layton is still the penciler. So this is all a dream, okay? So I'm not big on dream stories, so I decided, you know what, I'm not gonna waste a whole video on that. So we're gonna just go through this. We're just gonna admire the art, which is really the cool thing. It is the Epilogue Intimate Enemies here. So look at Barry Windsor Smith. He's also doing the colors, and Bob Layton will be inking here. So if this is all confusing, it's because he's having a nightmare and having the guilt of everything sort of that's happened. And look at Barry Windsor Smith's amazing art. And so I borrow this image all the time. And so he's fighting himself. Man, the colors are just Barry Windsor Smith, man. He is absolutely amazing. He uses one of the first people to use white as a color. And so when I first got this issue, I was like, how weird. And I kind of went and saw that it was a dream. And I've always hated dreams. Always. Um, Dream stories, sorry. I find that they are, it's weak. I'm just not a fan that of the whole issue. or episode being a dream. Those are just not my cup of tea. So, but Barry Windsor Smith drawing something is really cool. This is very, very, very cool. That's a great image here. And look at this. Man. Barry Windsor Smith has retired, and it's unfortunate because, man, this dude draws beautifully. I've covered his Weapon X. I have that in the Wolverine playlist. I've covered his X-Men issues. I have that in the X-Men playlist. And I covered the Inktober, his Monster trade paperback. So if you just do the search on my channel and look for Monsters, you'll see it. It's a black and white, amazing, his pretty much his last work. And so, see the explosion. Look at these colors, and he wakes up. A dream? No, not a dream. A nightmare. And so, that was it. And so, yeah, that's it. I must have missed the credits. Were they in the beginning? Let me just go and scroll up here, cause oh yeah, they were up here. Oh my god, I completely missed them. So, um, looks like Barry Windsor Smith plotted. So it looks like Barry wanted to do the dream thing, and so, yeah, Bob Layton just inked it. So, this is a good image. So, Iron Man 231 and 232, the conclusion of Stark Wars or Armor Wars. Like and subscribe, and I do thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.